Yumpin' Yemeni. Hello, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live's Leaf Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 249, 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Leaf Talk, the one, the only, Aaron William Freeland.
How are you doing today, Frank?
That's like Nylander. Isn't that the way they say it at the game?
They do. They draw it out a little bit.
Nylander. Well, here we are to talk about the Maple Leafs, and they are now actually, factually, and indubitably in first place in their division. When the season started, there were a lot of people that said, the experts. Okay. I may think an expert's different than you might think an expert is, but the experts that I listen to, usually the ones in the mirror, they tell me that this is the year that the Leafs have to finish first. They have to finish first. They haven't done that in a while. And maybe that would have offered them an opportunity to maybe a better shot to getting in the playoffs. Now, I actually don't believe that, because the difference between the top team and the eighth team in the Atlantic and in the Eastern Division, I should say, or Eastern Conference, I should say, to be accurate, it's really not that much, Aaron. So this team's playing really well right now. They're in first place. But the difference between them and, let's say, the New York Rangers, I don't think is a lot. I think right now the Rangers they've lost track of what's right, how to play. And this was a team that looked like they were the best in the conference there for a second.
It feels like the Rangers have forgotten how to hockey. And in particular, it seems like the front office has forgotten how to hockey.
Oh, boy, what's going on there? That looked like the Ballard years there.
I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I can say that Jacob Trouba is now an Anaheim Duck. So that is a rather fascinating turn of events.
Some suggest that Jacob Trouba got ducked.
Well, I mean, certainly nobody's ever used the term Jacob Trouba duck in that particular sentence before. Jacob Trouba duck for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's something. I wonder what happened that got him. Do we know why he got the bum's rush? Didn't he?
He definitely did. I wasn't 100% sure exactly what was happening. I know that he had been put on injured reserve because of back spasms, but I wasn't 100% sure why. I mean, they got rid of his $8 million salary all in one go. They get Urho Vakanainen and a 2025 fourth-round draft pick in return. And the Ducks will take the full $8 million salary cap charge for the rest of this season and next, which means that the Rangers now have $8.5 million, and they're on pace to accrue almost $27 million by the March 7th trade deadline, according to Puckpedia. So that's an interesting situation.
How is it that they get draft picks, and when the Leafs trade a guy like that, they want to get rid of with a big contract? They've got to accompany him with a first overall pick. Okay, first round.
I am never 100% sure exactly how all of this exactly works. All I know is that at this particular point in time, New York looks to be like they managed to get out from under the rock that they're under. They're currently sitting with a projected cap hit of $83.2 million, and there's $88 million in cap space. So,
I smell something odious.
There's
a smell here somewhere.
It could be that they're retooling.
Or it could be that somebody in New York's helping them out, because I don't know how they make that trade and get how do they end up with a fourth-round draft pick instead of offering up a first-round draft pick for a team to eat salary? I have never seen a team eat salary and give away picks and not get any in return. This is a first in this version of the National Hockey League. There's the last dozen years or so.
I think dovetailing with this move to get Trouba out to Anaheim is the interesting fact that Shesterkin has signed an 8-year, $92 million contract extension. So in order to get that
doesn't answer the question. How do the New York Rangers do something no one else has been able to do? I'm like I said, there's a smell somewhere. I'm smelling something. I don't know what it is, but it seems kind of odious. And I don't know. It seems a little untoward. I don't know how they ditch $8 million in contract and get a draft pick in return. And when the opposite is that they usually give up a first rounder. We saw the Leafs do it how many times? How many
Yeah.
how many times did the Leafs do it? Is it because the Leafs are stupid? I mean, sorry, that's not nice. It's not nice to call people.
Well, I mean, we certainly had a rookie
Was Dubas
GM.
a dum dum? Was Dubas a dum dum? Like, well, how did he give away first round draft picks for players in that same exact position? A player with a big contract that we know the team doesn't want. Does that not sound like what happened with the Rangers? It's like it was no secret they wanted to trade him, and you're telling me they got that good a deal? Interesting. Interesting.
I think what makes it really interesting is the fact that he wanted to stay in New York because his spouse is a doctor there. So I'm not sure if she's going to be moving to if she's going to be moving to the East Coast with him and the children, or what.
That doesn't have anything to do with a National Hockey League player. If NHL players who get paid $8 million a year get to decide where they go because where their spouse is working and you're making $8 million, I don't think so. I think the $8 million kind of says something. It kind of says, you know what? You're in. You're all in, buddy. So this is unusual because I'm really, to quote a great radio guy, I'm exposing my Spockian eye here. I mean, there's something weird going on here that trade happens the way it does. But we're not here to talk about the Rangers. We're here to talk about Austin Matthews, who scored 2 goals, more than one, in one game for the very, 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 get this, folks, first time this year. And he did it, 13 times last year or 19 times, something like that?
I think 18 or 19 times last year. Yeah,
Right.
this was a really interesting game in that I thought Marner was going to end up with 4 points, but unfortunately they decided not to count John Tavares's empty net goal right at the buzzer, which would have been embarrassing enough for the Predators player that was chasing him back, because John isn't exactly known as being the most fleet of foot. John Tavares and wins a foot race are generally not sentences that are used in the NHL.
Embarrassed. They're embarrassed because that's the 4th game in a row they lost 3-2.
And not only that, they turned around.
Let it count. Let the goal count. Come on, let the goal count.
and so that was their 5th straight loss. We'll be talking about the Predators a little bit later in our 3rd period, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marner got 3 assists. The Leafs won for the 10th time in 12 games. This is, I think, their 3rd win with Austin Matthews back, who's now scored 4 points in the first 3 games that he's been back. He's had 2 goals, 2 assists. He scored twice early in the 3rd period. Nylander also scored for Toronto. Joseph Woll had 22 saves. Marchessault and Jankowski scored for Nashville. The problem was Nashville loaded up with a whole bunch of guys over the course of the summer. They added about 100 goals to their lineup, and unfortunately,
last year goals.
This year has translated to less.
This year goals are a little bit less. I mean, they got themselves 2 players that were key components to the teams they played for in winning Stanley Cups.
Marchessault and Stamkos. And you got to wonder if Stamkos is maybe regretting his decision to move on from the Tampa Bay Lightning after those 2 Stanley Cup wins.
Was it his decision?
Probably not. I mean, let's be honest here. A lot of the guys that move teams during the offseason don't move because they want to. They move because the team is trying to do something else or going in a different direction. So
he was in the same boat that unfortunately Tavares is in. The question of being over the hill, not today, but tomorrow. And if you want a contract with some duration, then, they're going to look at you as who are you going to be towards the end of the contract? So look, Stamkos has had a wonderful career. He's won a bunch of Stanley Cups. I think he has a Hall of Fame career that he already has accomplished. I think the Hall of Fame. There's no problem with him making a Hall of Fame. But when you're a player like that who's accustomed to being paid the amount that he was being paid, and the importance that he was to that team, it is not easy to walk away from that. And you know what else isn't easy? I love the description yesterday on the broadcast when they talked about, when you wonder why a player goes from one year scoring a lot of goals to another year where he's right. And I liked what was said on the broadcast, Aaron. I think there's a lot of truth in that. He moves from from Tampa, to Nashville, and now he's trying to figure out where the laundromat is. He's trying to figure out where the school is that his kids are going. His wife's figuring what she's going to do, where she's going to go. Everything is new and everything requires adjustment. When he was in Tampa last year, all he had to think about was jumping out of the house. Everything was automatic. He knew where to get his coffee. He knew how long it would take to the arena. He knew the ice. He knew everybody at the arena so that he could do what he wants to do. And now all of a sudden he's in a different world. And the same's true for Marchessault. So it's hard for a player that's been with one team for a long time and then adjust accordingly, right? I don't remember if we had that adjustment period with Tavares. I think he was pretty good. Well, no, he did have a slow start as a Leaf, didn't he?
A little bit. I mean, he was still hovering right around a point a game, which is where he's been his entire career pretty much. But it felt like a slower start. Um, Certainly, coming into the last couple of years of his contract here, he's definitely on fire. Um, but at the same time, yeah, there was a bit of a slow start. So that is it is what it is.
He's playing well. He,
Yep.
give it, a split second could have made the difference between, 4-2, 3-2. As far as the team's concerned, it really doesn't matter because the team won. And they won again, and they've been really strong at home, Aaron. If I remember correctly, they had a slow start at home this year. They've really turned that around, I think.
Well, they didn't jump out to massive leads when it came to playing at home. I mean, they're currently 12-3-0 at home. They're 4-4-2 on the road. So home cooking is definitely what seems to get it done for this team. Compare them to the Panthers or even to the lowlier Bruins. The Panthers are 8-5-1 at home and 8-4-1 on the road. The Bruins are 8-6-2 at home and 6-5-1 on the road. A lot of the teams that are up near the tops of their divisions have managed to figure out the road trick.
Yeah,
So,
well,
that's
to be a top team in the league, you got to win more than half your games. So, you only play half at home. So you have to figure something
yeah.
out on the road, right? For your lack of perfection has to be made up on the road that you have at home. So, yeah. So, the other thing is that now, they're talking about Matthew Nyes now. Let's go to Matthew Nyes and you wanted to talk about the fact that he probably could be the best power forward since Gary Roberts. I think that's I think that's a comparison. I'm not going to call it fair or unfair, but it's a comparison. The reason I say it's not fair or unfair, we're talking about a young player playing for the Leafs, starting his career and doing it in Toronto, and Gary Roberts, basically coming to Toronto to end his career or pretty close to ending his career, correct? So
Yeah.
there's a difference there, right? But what you've got is you've got a young man that it's funny because we know now from what happened to him in the playoffs the first year that he's with the Leafs in Tampa. When was it? What's his name? Wasn't Maroon? No, it was the other guy. No, the guy from Florida that basically sumo wrestled him to the ground.
Cousins. Yeah.
Yeah, Cousins. Thanks. Threw him to the ground and separated his shoulder. He invites that kind of behavior by the way he plays.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Matthew Nyes plays a very physical, very rugged game. And he's still very young. He's only 22. So far this season, he's got 10 goals in 23 games. That's putting him on pace to score 34, 35 goals in his second really full-time NHL season. More than double the 15 goals he generated in the 2023-2024 campaign. I mean, and for the amount that they're paying him, he is an absolute steal at $925,000.
That won't last long.
No, oh no, guaranteed. Once he's done his entry level contract, that's going to he's going to basically fall into the same category as all those players that get
Five
the huge
plus.
raise in pay.
He'll
There's
be
no
5+. I think he'll be 5+.
Yeah, which is why I'm glad that the cap is going up as much as it is projected to go up over the
Well,
course of the
it can
next
only
2
help
years.
you with a couple of players. Not all of them, Aaron.
Yeah.
This is the problem, right? Like it's like when you get a raise, right? Okay, so we can get the double burger instead of the single. I mean, they but you know what? Regardless of that, that's a concern for another day. Maybe the trade deadline be the next time. The season starts, the trade deadline. That's when the cap is an issue. The rest of the time, the cap fluctuates because of injuries, as we've learned, right? So injuries are a way of, for example, we've got Hakanpää, who has played one game for the Leafs or two?
Two, I think. He basically had an NHL conditioning stint before
Yeah.
they put him back on LTIR.
And the reason I mention this is because, the cap is an issue, and here he is, unable to play for the Leafs because of some knee surgery. And here he is, Finland, saying, well, he's going to be in our defense. He's not healthy enough to play, but I guess you figure in February he'll be fine.
Well, that's the thinking, right? I mean, there's still months to go before we get there. I mean, not only is he on IR right now, but Dakota Mermis has also gone on LTIR. I mean, he's only making 775 grand as
Yeah,
compared
but
to
it
the
is what it
Hakanpää's
is.
1.47 million. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And yeah, Hakanpää's only signed through the end of this year, so you know,
Yeah, he might even play this year.
fingers crossed. I'd like to see him on the ice.
Well, if he's playing for Team Finland on defense, it means he's a pretty good player. The
Yeah.
Finns put together a pretty good squad. They're a pretty good hockey country, right? So that makes you go, oh, not a bad player. But the money he's going to get is not that much. I don't think after this year he's going to ask for much more. I don't think. Well, he might get it, but I guess it depends how he plays. Let's talk about. Let's go through the news real quick. So a CEO of a health company assassinated. Aaron, when I saw this, I was like, I got to be honest with you. The more frustrated people get, the more chance there is that something like this is going to happen. And the more, I'm not justifying it. Please don't, nobody accuse me of justifying it. But I am concerned with the more people don't have, and the more your average citizen doesn't have, the more frustrations there's going to be. And when you have it in a country where guns are like they come out of gumball machines almost, you're going to have a crazy person end up with a gun, or a very unhappy person, because nobody's keeping track of who's unhappy enough to do something with a gun.
No, and understand, I don't condone assassinations. I am not happy
Nope.
about this, nor am I sad or overly upset. It is an event that happened. But
Well, it
let's
has
bear
nothing to do with you. The
no,
reason you don't feel sad, you don't really know the person. You don't have a
no.
personal relationship.
I mean, the thing that we have to bear in mind is UHC, or United Healthcare, has a known track record of denying insurance claims for 32% of the applications that they receive. Um, in conjunction with that, they allowed one of their websites to be breached and decided to pay the ransom in Bitcoin to a hacking group that had access to 100 million of their records, exposing people's sensitive information. Now, based on that, and based on the fact that they were denying 32% of claims, leads me to believe that it is very possible that they have severely inconvenienced and negatively affected families through the policy choices that they're making when it comes to this sort of thing. This does not justify the murder of a CEO, but
No,
it does make it understandable. You are going to create enemies.
not understandable. It creates a motivation.
Yes.
It's not
And
understandable. I don't understand it. Killing somebody is not something I can understand. Sorry, Aaron, I don't mean to
no,
correct you.
no, I understand, and I appreciate that, Frank. I appreciate the clarification. What was written on the shell casings that were found at the attack were deny, defend, and depose. This is part of the cycle that insurance companies will go through. They'll deny coverage, they'll defend their denial of coverage, and then they'll go to court and depose you. That is basically their playbook when it comes to this sort of thing. Um, the people's reactions to this have been incredibly dark. Um, I think the people's reactions are uh, it's very dark humor that is coming out of all of this.
I don't
Um,
know if I could call it humor.
well, and again,
No, I haven't seen it, Aaron. I'm sorry. I'm
oh,
presupposing.
right,
I haven't seen the conversation. I just
yeah,
again, we're talking about a parent, a father of two young boys.
hmm,
We're talking about a family.
yep, we
Um,
are, and
but
no, no,
you're pointing something out that people don't want to hear. And that's why I'm being very careful because people
mhm,
don't want to hear. Because I'm gonna fall not necessarily 100% with you in line with you, but I will say it this way very quickly. Um, if people are hurt by a company and there's no guns available,
this doesn't
they
happen.
will throw paint at them. They
Mhm,
will maybe even manufacture a bomb, maybe do something like that. This is the world we live in, and this is the sad thing about when corporate irresponsibility becomes the norm. A reaction to their irresponsibility is you're just going to feed it. It again, it's not deserved. It's a reaction, and what we're seeing here, Aaron, and real quick, we're seeing anarchy at work. This is anarchy. This is what anarchy looks like. It isn't just a guy who's president being an anarchist. Individuals can be anarchists. In other words, an individual that decides there's no other way to deal with this than me do it myself and do it with a gun. And that's sad. To me, that's sad. That's a
I,
sad reflection of our society.
now, the same day that this actually happened, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield also announced that in Connecticut, Michigan, and New York, they would be time limiting the amount of anesthesia that could be used in surgical procedures. Meaning, if somebody's surgery went longer than a certain predetermined specified time by the insurance company, they would cut off anesthesia to those particular patients. So again, as someone who has universal health care, this approach, quite frankly, flummoxes me. I'm not able to wrap
It's,
my head around how you could seek to do this to another human
if
being.
if if
So
if people are people, we think differently than when people are numbers. And this
fair,
is the problem. When you start treating people like numbers, the pain that they feel, the risk that you make them take is something you don't feel. So you don't see how angry they are. And this guy is, like when you do a survey and you survey over 100 people and you get their opinion on something,
hmm,
right? So now what you got is this guy is part of the survey. That is a guy who's willing to kill somebody. How many people are unhappy to the point before they get to his point? Do you follow what I'm saying?
yeah,
Is the tip of the iceberg. If they think that this is just, they try to wash it off like some lunatic, and when people use the word radicalization, right? This guy, I'll bet dollars to donuts, I have no idea, I don't know, but if he's just an ordinary person who did this and wrote those words on those bullets, he was motivated to kill based on what the guy he killed represented, not the father of two children, but what he represented. And that's when people are dehumanized by insurance companies, people can also dehumanize the people that work for the insurance companies. We're seeing that in play here. That's what's going
yeah.
on here.
No, for sure. I mean, basically, what it's boiled down to is Brian Thompson is no longer Brian Thompson the person. Brian Thompson, the separated father. Brian Thompson, he represents for a lot of people what is wrong, because his salary is in the tens of millions of dollars, whereas people that work for him are making a pittance, and while they may be working 40 hours a week, they still rely on welfare. Meanwhile, the company gets donations, the company gets support. you know um, as it currently stands, because of the breach that they suffered in February that affected 100 million people, there are hundreds of clinics that they were working with that went bankrupt because they couldn't pay them. So, as a favor to those doctors from those bankruptcy clinics, United Healthcare bought the clinics. So now not only do they own clinics, but they're also providing the insurance for those clinics, which is kind of a little bit of a conflict of interest. You're it's yeah, it's a not good, entirely bad, really
Well,
stupid situation. So
this is like when somebody takes a shot at Trump, they can say all they want that it has to do with democracy, or it has to do with Democrats, or it has to be with this, it has to be with that. But it might be just as simple as somebody's just pissed off at somebody for
yep,
some reason. You know, they don't. I know we like to talk about the use of guns, and when it comes to people who shoot up schools, there's definitely something wrong with them. But this isn't that. This is not that. This is something that was done, and the evidence is pointing to it. That it's undeniable. Somebody was stating a fact when they put those words on that bullet, and what those words represent. They were sending a message of why they were angry. They were sending a message, and I don't know if the message will be received, or if it'll just be, let's get this guy who shot this guy, and let's not worry about why he did it. Not worrying about why he did it, because this isn't plain insanity. This is a little insanity side-ish, insanity-ish. It's not total insanity where somebody was. I don't think this guy, that was a pretty lucid thing to write on 3 bullets. It's yikes. It's scary. It is scary that we live in a world today where politicians, businesses do things that can anger a very large group of people, of which one will come out and do something like this. And that, for you and I agree with you 100% this looks like one of those things where somebody's pissed. We've seen movies about it. We've seen
John
TV
Q.
shows about it.
Yeah.
we've
Here's what's bonkers in all of this, Frank, is United Healthcare is still set to bring in $280 billion in revenue this year, despite having a cyber attack that compromised thousands and millions of people's healthcare information, payment information, personal information. Um, Despite them allowing doctors' offices to go bankrupt and buying them out for pennies on the dollar as a favor while charging them interest. All of this is just boggles my Canadian mind, because I just can't wrap my head around it.
Well,
So,
there are angry people in the world, and
yep.
some are angered for the worst and tiniest of reasons.
I think
And
what upsets me the
some
most about all. Sorry, Frank. I
no,
don't
no,
mean to
I'm just
interrupt, but
saying some are angry because of bigger things.
and I think what upsets me the most is it takes a white, rich CEO to die before we're potentially going to see any gun law changes. That's I
Uh,
think the thing that upsets me
I
the
don't
most.
think it'll change. Well,
Uh,
I get what I know what you're trying to say. I know, Mr.
you know,
Left. I know what you're
yeah,
trying to say. You're trying to say that if the target is on rich folks may think a little more seriously about. But I think kids fit into the rich folks kind of, because that's innocence, and they haven't done anything with such innocence being killed, a dozen at a time. That it's just the guns thing, and this guy had a silencer on the gun as well, which they were saying they'd never seen in New York. That's the first time they've seen a gun like that in New York. Period.
hmm,
Period. This is new territory. When it first happened, it looked like a hit, and it looked like the guy was a professional. I don't know what a professional hitman looks like except for in the movies. I have a feeling the movies, they use artistic license. You know what I mean? What is a hitman really look like? I don't know. If they're saying that's what he looks like, I could buy it. But he wasn't as smart as maybe some people are pointing out. He went to the coffee shop. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he went to the Starbucks beforehand.
Starbucks.
Yeah.
Starbucks. He went there, and they've got a picture of him. So facial recognition is at work.
Well, and I guess the question is, if anybody does really know who he is, will they report him?
Well, it depends who he knows, I guess. Right?
I mean, this could be one of those sort of Robin Hood-esque sort of moments where they appreciate what he's done.
I don't know. As far as my recollection, and of course, Robin Hood is he's not wasn't a real person, right? It was just it was a book. It was a story. It was he was a guy who stole from the rich and gave to the poor, but they never emphasized his killing. He wasn't really a killer, at least not in the washed version of Robin Hood. We didn't see too much killing going on. This is killing. This is wrong. This is wrong on so many levels. So many levels. But anyway, let's get on to let's go right to hockey and let's go to basketball. Let's go to the Raptors. Oh boy, they look terrible. I watched this game. This was, oh my gosh. The first half, fewest points the Raptors have ever scored.
That bad, huh? I mean, I know Michelle and I were only flipping back and forth, but Oklahoma City just apparently put on a clinic in both ends. I mean, we turned in at one point, saw the Raptors were down by 30, and went, nope.
Yeah, Alexander was awesome.
I know Rajakovic specifically called out Ledort, one of the league's most fearsome defenders. RJ Barrett was his assignment, and Ledort held him to 5 for 16 shooting and 1 for 7 for 3 for 17 points. But this is one of those things where you're desperately searching for any sort of bright light in the darkness. That was really not a pretty game to watch in the slightest. So,
absolutely. Let's go to the third period and let's go to hockey. We only got a couple of seconds left. Do we have anything we want to say about the Leafs before we go?
Well, Austin Matthews made Team America. Mitch Marner made Team Canada.
Yep.
So
Nylander made Sweden.
Yep. All of the usual suspects.
So we've got a Leaf per team.
Pretty much, which is roughly the way
it works. What do you think of the Hyman snub?
You can only bring a certain amount of players. And unfortunately, Zach didn't quite make the cut this time.
He's off to a slow start.
Well, yeah, he's not as on fire as he was
last year, Aaron.
Far too many for his own good, put it that way. He set the bar way too high.
I think also what the experts and I mean, I have my own thoughts, but I use experts to sort of underpin what I believe. And the old story of if you want to win these kinds of events, you can't just take the top 10 players who score and put them on your team. There's roles that have to be played. And Hyman, unfortunately, if last year he showed more of the Hyman that we knew here in Toronto, he might be on the team. But when he became a big scorer, they've got a few of those. There are a few of those in the National Hockey League. So they have a couple of those, the better ones than him, that they think are better than him. But then they also have guys that don't score so much, that know how to kill penalties, that know how to play, how to shut down the other team's good players. So role becomes the operative word when you put these teams together, scorers, defenders, and then you have your goaltenders, right? So, Aaron, I like the idea of this tournament. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to really enjoy, if you're a Leaf fan watching Austin against Marner.
Here's the thing, though. You've got Austin, you've got Eichel, you've got both Kachucks, you've got Kyle Connor.
That lineup, that lineup is a little bit of sandpaper to it, which is why a lot of people didn't understand why Wilson of Washington didn't make the team, because they can use a little bit of that. They're going to need a bit about that with the Americans.
Oh, for sure. The problem is, on paper, this is, I think, the best looking American roster that they've put together in decades.
Absolutely. And they're pretty people. The experts are pretty impressed with the forward combination that the Canadian team can have, and we all agree. I think all of us. We don't have to be an expert to look in the net and go, Canada goaltending, because now they're relying on somebody whose consistency has really been up and down. You know,
Oh, if you're talking about Bennington, yeah.
who else am I talking about? He's their number one right now, right?
Oh, Sam Montembeau has actually been making a decent case for it.
We were joking
He's been
about him
having a
last. I
terrible
was
season with
joking about
Montreal.
him last week with the Vezina Trophy after playing the Leafs. What happened to the Vezina Trophy winner? I
Oh,
guess I guess the only game they've watched with Mutombo is the one against the Leafs.
probably, but I
It's
mean,
a couple.
with America showing up with Hellebuck, Ottinger, and Swayman, that is definitely something that makes you turn your head. I'm glad to see that Markstrom is going to be there and Olmark
Oh,
is going to be there,
oh.
but
I like Sweden's goaltending better than Canada's.
yeah,
I like
I, I,
America.
I
I like the US's goaltending better than Canada's. If
I'll be
this
honest
was
with you.
3, 4 years ago, I would have liked Finland's goaltending better than
Juicy
the
Saros, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and Kevin Lankinen are not to be
not.
overlooked.
Well, there you go. You
So
know, that's the one thing our I don't know why our junior ranks aren't aren't working with the goaltending. I don't know why the goaltending in Canada doesn't seem to be really good. But maybe we don't respect the Canadians that are in goal. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe they're better than we realize or better than we think.
you know what? It's very possible that that the Goldies are the most overlooked and misunderstood part of any hockey team.
Yeah. Well, the defense is pretty good. They've
Yeah.
got a nice variety of defensemen. They've got stay-at-home guys. They got guys that can run the power play. There are guys that are really good at 5-and-5. And every time these kinds of tournaments happen, Aaron, we always and it's been a while, and just I want to remember, it seems into my recollection, the hockey's amazing.
Or
My
it's terrible.
Oh, no, I've never seen it terrible. Might be terrible for Canada, but it's never been terrible hockey. No, it's never been terrible hockey. I mean, well, terrible in the sense that, if the difference between the two teams is a lot. But I do know two things about these kinds of events. It won't be as intense, but I love the intensity when they're wearing the maple leaf, Aaron. Come on.
That's definitely fair.
On. Seeing Canada against the U.S. Nothing stirs your grits more than that. I mean, that's Austin Matthews. Hit him, hit him, hit him, hit him, hit him through the wall. Come on now. Don't fool around no more. Marner, come on, knee him. Come on, man. Let's go. Let's go. Let's win this game.
So I have a quick question for you, Frank.
Okay.
Are we going to run full time, or would you like to?
Well, I think Eduardo will be fine that we run full time. What
Okay.
do you think, Eduardo? Because that's why I was moving us along. My apologies. Let's what, if he turns us off, he turns us off. How's
Yeah,
that?
you know what? Hey, we'll give him carte blanche to just pull the
Let's
plug
let's
whenever he feels like he
so what
wants.
we're doing right now, we're playing without a clock,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So pull the cord whenever you feel like it, Eduardo. All right. So then what we'll do is we'll go back to baseball. Let's talk about the Rays and their stadium.
So there was talk of Tampa Bay saying after the big hurricane, well, because of what happened to Tropicana Field, we may move. And St. Petersburg said, well, you know, um, we're going to approve the money. So if you guys want to move, you're going to be losing out on a $1.3 billion bond. Um, you know, that because that's what we're setting up for you guys. So they're essentially calling their bluff. But it's $287 million in bonds for the Rays' new $1.3 billion stadium and $142 million for gas plant infrastructure. This now tees up the Pinellas commissioners who will vote on their portion of a $312.5 million bond on December 17th. So, after the roof got ripped off the stadium, there was talk, of course, of the Rays moving to a slightly more hospitable, less tornado alley location But it looks like the city's trying to get him to stay put.
And why wouldn't they?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't they? Unfortunately, the baseball team hasn't been a lock in that town.
Hmm.
So one has to wonder. So they haven't had a lot of success in Tampa, and it'd really be a shame if they spent all that money and the team. Like there's talk. There was talk that the Expos, the Expo. I'm calling them the Expos. The Montreal team, which would be called the Expos if they came back, half the games would be played in Montreal. Remember, there was that
Yep.
conversation. So there has been a conversation that Tampa was on the way out, and Montreal was more than willing to be hospitable to any level that they could. And I'm all for it too. Nothing would be nicer than seeing the Expos come back to Major League Baseball.
Oh,
And
most definitely.
yeah,
I'd love to see something like that.
that would be great. Okay, let's talk about what you really love to talk about. Tiddlywinks. No, I mean F1.
So, for those of you who are fans of the Dutch Grand Prix at the Zandvoort racetrack, that is looking to be removed from the schedule, unfortunately, after the end of the 5-year contract that they currently have in 2026. So, if you're planning on seeing the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort anytime soon, um, the track is in a holiday town on the North Sea coast. It's been struggling to make the event work financially, despite sellout crowds attending to support Max Verstappen. Um, he won the first 3 races after Zandvoort returned, um, but it's been touch and go for them just because of increasing costs. Um, that's the problem that they're running into here. Stefano Domenicali says the Dutch Grand Prix has raised the bar for European Grand Prix in terms of event spectacle and entertainment, but unfortunately, they've got to find a financial situation to actually make it viable. Because at the end of the day, Liberty Media is in it to make money. And if they have racetracks that aren't making them money, they just as soon drop them.
Well, good. Hope it all works out. Let's go to the third period. We'll start with the Habs, and the Canadians beat the Predators 3-0. They seem to be lining up real well.
Yeah,
Lioning up. Never mind.
you know what? Got a goal in his first game back, so that was a really, really big help for them.
A typical goal for him.
Oh yeah, head down and muscle it past the goalie.
Great addition for Montreal. Will it be enough to give them a push to the playoffs? We're going to find out. They're on a roll right now. I think they've won 2 in a row, haven't they, with them?
They have, yeah. And that is, like I said, 6 straight losses for the Predators is never a good thing, obviously.
Predator.
But they're wrapping up their 3-game Canadian road trip on Saturday with a visit to see the Ottawa Senators. So there's, technically speaking, a bit of a battle of the basement there.
Yeah. We'll see about that. Let's talk about Norris and his second goal. 41 seconds left to lift the Senators over the Red Wings 2-1.
Yeah, that game was a nail biter all the way through. The Senators appeared to take a 2-0 lead in the second period on a power play goal by Drake Batherson, but the Red Wings challenged, and it was actually ruled as offside. Now, the Senators opened the scoring at 12:15 of the first period when Norris was able to get his own rebound and put it past Billy Husso. But Detroit tied it at 6:15 of the third on a 4-on-3 advantage. The Brent Cat caught Ullmark way out of position, which unfortunately happens a lot for his 11th goal of the season. But yeah, Norris's goal with 46 seconds left was just a nice little capper for it.
It may have been Norris scoring, but it was, yes, we're winning. Good for Ottawa. Excellent. Adam Lowry scores an OT, gives the Jets a 3-2 win.
Yeah, it was 3:49 into overtime. Now this actually helped to end the Winnipeg Jets 4-game losing streak. Good for what ails you, but it was an issue obviously for them. After winning as many games as they did to start the season, going on a bit of a slide like that was definitely a wake-up call for them. Gabriel Velarde and Kyle Connor also scored for Winnipeg, and Connor Hellebuyck had 28 saves. This is the third time in the past 7 games that the Jets scored more than 1 goal, and they've only won 2 of those games. Tage Thompson's power play goal in the first period ended a run of 16 consecutive power plays without a goal. So Buffalo got off the schneid in that regard. The most recent one before that came back on November 20th in Los Angeles from Jason Zucker. So both teams have been struggling. I think it's interesting that Buffalo GM was finally set to address the media this afternoon. He hasn't actually spoken or had a press conference with the media since September, so just before training camp started. So I'll have to go back and revisit that. Unfortunately, they were going live at the same time that we were going live, so I wasn't able to tap into that.
Canadian player and St. Louis Blue Parayko scores overtime winner for the Blues, who beat the Canadian Flames.
Yeah, it was the OT winner. Last thing the Flames needed at this point, but good for Colton Parayko at least heading into the Four Nations Cup. Robert Thomas had a goal and 2 assists. Zach Bolduc and Pavel Buchnevich also scored, and Philip Broberg had 2 assists for the Blues, who are now 13, 12, and 2. Both Parayko and Binnington were named to Canada's roster for February's Four Nations face-off. Binnington's 36 saves mark his 300th NHL appearance, just the second goalie in Blues history to reach the plateau, behind Mike Liu, who played 347 games for them.
Let's talk about Hyman. We talked about him earlier, and he had 2 goals for the Oilers.
Yeah, now Hyman had actually missed the last 5 games with an injury. He scored the first of 2 goals midway through the first period as the Oilers came out to a 6-3 win. Being back is the best, Hyman said. To get a win and be able to contribute feels good. Obviously, as we've talked about earlier, it hasn't been the best start for him. He had just 3 goals on the heels of making a big leap forward last season with a career high 54 goals. So talk about setting the bar too high and shooting yourself in the foot. But yeah, his time away, he said, was a good reset. He didn't have the greatest start, but 2 goals in your first game back is always a good thing.
Absolutely. The Blackhawks, they fired their coach, and now for the first time in NHL history, there's a Swedish head coach.
Yeah. So Anders Sorensen, who used to be Willie Nylander's coach from the age of 7 up, and spent 4 years coaching in the AHL, specifically with their affiliate, the Rockford Ice Hogs, has now been elevated. What Sorensen's primary goal is, I think, is to get Connor Bedard back up to his Calder-winning trophy levels. He's actually the second Finnish-born head coach, I think, or at least the second one in.
There's a Finnish GM. Wasn't Nashville before he got fired? Was it Nashville or Columbus? Columbus.
Yeah.
Finnish
But
GM.
also, you have to remember Alpo Suhonen was the first Finnish-born head coach. Yeah, and so now he's the first Swedish-born head coach. There we go. So it's Scandinavian. And again, it's the whole. You got to look outside of the box to try to find these guys, because obviously, for Chicago, the same 30 trusted hockey men just weren't getting the job done. The coaching carousel has to be changed at some point.
Well, we've seen it in the CFL where the definition of who coaches in the CFL has changed drastically. You don't have to have experience as a coach in the CFL to become a coach in the CFL, which it's intuitive. It isn't counterintuitive, because you have to start somewhere. You have to be a coach somewhere to be a coach in the CFL. So let's talk about. I want to talk about a player and how you feel about him, Grebenkin. How do you feel about Nikita Grebenkin?
I be honest with you, I have been happy to see the way that he's been performing.
How about his chatter on the subway and around town? There's people that are getting on his case because of the stuff that he's saying. I think a lot of what he says and the effect it has is not because he's trying to do something. It's because his broken English and his lack of, really having a firm grip on the English language. It's part of it too, that he reaches for something that sounds like what he wants to say. So he's sideish when he talks. It's funny. I think he's funny, and I like he's an honest player, and I believe he isn't
See, to me, he's one of those lunch bucket players. He's one of those players that will come in and day out give you a decent day's work. I also think because he is still learning English, some of his teammates are having a bit of a Mickey with him.
Oh no! You think that's what's going on? Because I do a lot of it. Lucy, you have some splaining to do.
I just that whole back check, forecheck, paycheck thing is something that comes directly from a TV show called Letterkenny.
Yeah. But it's also something that has been said in hockey circles as well.
Oh, for sure. for sure, which is why it made it into the TV show.
Are you
So
saying that he
popular
watches
became.
Letterkenny? Is that how he's learning the English language? That could explain a lot of things.
I'm willing to bet either he watches Letterkenny or his teammates do, and they're like, "Hey, the key to say this. It's hilarious. Trust me."
I'm sure he doesn't know Letterkenny. I can nail him with some stuff from Letterkenny. Oh, that's terrible. If that's what they're doing to the poor guy. Well, you know what?
I think they're having a bit of fun with it. I think he's having fun with it too. I think a lot of it.
That's the important thing. When a person is not, if the person's in on the joke, it's good. It's fine. As long as they're in on the joke, in other words, they're a willing participant, it's fine. It's fine. Well, that was interesting, Aaron. Dude, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. Sorry about the slow start.
It happens. What are we going to do?
We had some technicalities.
We certainly did.
For Aaron William Freeland, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live's Leaf Talk, seen Fridays at 6 p.m. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Leaf Talk, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Oh, my goodness, it's December. We're going to have ourselves some really interesting hockey. It's going to start getting really intense. This is my favorite time of NHL in the year.
15 games in 31 days for the Maple Leafs, and they got Washington coming up tonight.
It's a grind, and tonight they're playing the other team that's at the top of the conference. So this is going to be a good game. Ovechkin isn't in yet, but it'll be interesting.
For sure. Can't wait to see it.
Thanks for doing this.
Not a problem, Frank. We'll see you Monday.
Until next time.